So welcome to today's class. My name's Owen and we're going to be doing some Yin Yoga today. First off, we want to get into a comfortable seated position. That could be cross-legged, it could be with one leg or both legs out in front of us, it could be sitting on the floor, on our mat, or it could be sitting onto a block, a brick, a pillow, a bolster. From there the chin can come towards the chest and we can just soften the inhale and exhale, extending our exhale slightly longer than the inhale, to have a nice relaxed approach to our breathing in and out through the nose, drawing the breath down into the belly and up into the chest, nice and slow and soft. And in today's session, we've got a few props that I'm going to be utilising as an option for us to try and soften and support where necessary. Now I'm using a grey brick, a teal coloured block, which is the rectangular prop, and a strap. Now you might have these to hand, but if you don't, you could use a blanket that's been rolled up, you could use pillows, you could use a book, and for the strap you could use a belt or maybe a towel, any sort of fabric that's going to be able to take the tension of resting our legs on at some point later on in the session, but is also going to be soft enough to be comfortable for us. And then from there we're just going to begin to set up for our first yin pose of our class today. We're going to extend the legs out in front of us to a straight position, checking in with how we feel in the hip crease at the front of the legs there. Sitting higher if we want to soften, that could be on a block, on a pillow, on a blanket, just to elevate the hips slightly, and that will reduce the intensity for us. We want to make sure that if we feel that we're falling back or rounding through the spine to stay vertical, that we sit that bit higher. We can bend in the knees to alleviate some tension if we have any hamstring tightness or sciatic pain. And to come into our half butterfly pose, we'll bring that right foot in towards the inner left thigh so that the knee falls out to the side. And this is where we might use a bit of support. That could be, once again, a blanket or a yoga brick. Placing it on the outside of the thigh. Keeping the left leg straight, we can look down the leg, bending the knee if we once again want to soften. Sitting up nice and tall, inhaling to lift the hands up and exhale down towards the feet. And the crucial part is to be down towards the feet. We can rest the hands on the thigh, the shin, the ankle, or the foot. Trying to keep a relatively straight spine to start. And then if we wish to, we could just lightly round on an exhale, gently, without forcing our way down. So whenever we're going into a forward type fold, it can be crucial that we really do stop ourselves early. When we can see the toes ahead of us, that is often when we might feel the need to force our way down to touch our toes, where it's a bit of a test of flexibility. But I'd recommend that we don't hold on to the leg or the foot when we're draping forwards. Like I've done in this particular pose, we can take a nice slow inhale through the nose, have a gentle exhale, and then just let the arms rest draped either side of that front leg. The chin can come lightly towards the chest. Then we can just find our stillness for this first pose today, our half butterfly. And just as a reminder, within Yin Yoga, we want to try and bring our poses into approximately 80% of our maximum depth. Where we're holding poses for a longer period of time, it's crucial that we don't go to our maximum. Just for our last few rounds of breath here, we can begin to be ready to come out of the pose. Take a nice slow inhale through the nose, and as we do so, we can begin to sit up nice and slowly and tall. We can bring that right hand to the outside of the right knee or thigh to help close the book of the leg, allowing the foot to be placed so that it's slightly away from that inner left thigh now, about hand's width, maybe 2 hands width, so we're on a nice stable platform. We can use our brick or book or whatever we have to hand, potentially if we wish to then come into a nice seated twist. So personally, I like to place the right hand out to the side, maybe on a brick, maybe on the floor, having the left hand preemptively on the outside of the right knee or thigh. We could have that right hand behind us on the floor, but sometimes this will mean that we lean back. We want to try and keep a nice vertical spine position here. That's why I personally like to use a prop. That left hand could work its way down the thigh of the right leg, so the elbow crease is positioned at the knee instead for extra depth. Gently looking back behind us, so we're not forcing and cranking the neck or the spine to look over that right shoulder, closing the eyes once we're there, or picking a point to focus on and soften the gaze to a yoga drishti point. And as we sit in silence and stillness in this nice seated twist, we can just be a bit more aware of that nice, slow and steady wave-like breath rolling using the diaphragm to inhale down into the belly, then maybe allowing that last 10 or maybe 20% of that inhale to rise up into the chest before slowly making its way back down like a wave on the shore. And to come out of the twist, we will release that left hand from the right leg, bringing our brick or prop if we've used one round in the right hand to the side of the body, elongating that right leg straight to match the left, and then having a bit of a bounce in the knees, a bit of a twist in the legs to get a bit of rotation in the hip. And we can stay facing the same direction, but for clarity, I've just rotated round, checking in with the hips again so we can see if we need to sit higher or not. If we feel any irritation in that hip crease, then we can either bend at the knees, sit higher, or do a combination of the two. And placing our prop out to the side if we're using one, we can just begin to draw that left leg in, allowing ourselves to bring the left foot onto the inner right thigh, letting the left knee drop out, supporting underneath the thigh or the knee if necessary of any props we might want to use. We can bend in that right leg if we need to alleviate tension from the hamstring or from any sciatic nerve pain. Bring the hands up, inhale in to lift and exhale down towards the feet, stopping at the thigh, at the shin, at the ankle or the foot itself, not forcing our way down. Really trying to tilt the pelvis forward as opposed to rounding fully through the spine. And once we get the right depth that we feel comfortable with, we can have a light bend if we need to drape over the legs without tension. The hands we can release from the leg, letting the arms drape either side of that front right leg. So we're not pulling, so we're not gripping, forcing our way down. Bring the chin lightly towards the chest, then enjoying this half butterfly pose on the opposite side now. And to come out of the pose and bring the hands either side of that extended leg, lightly pushing up if we want the support to sit up nice and tall, inhaling up, helping that left knee up with the left hand on the outer thigh or knee. Positioning the left foot a bit further away from the inner right thigh so we're nice and stable. Sitting up tall but propping that left hand this time if we want to use one. We can take an inhale to lift through the crown of the head and exhale to soften, rotating round to that left side, the same side as the bent leg. That left hand supports either on the floor or the prop behind us. The right hand can support either on the outer left knee or coming down the thigh of the elbow crease, coming towards that left knee. Using it as an anchor as opposed to an act of force to bring us into this twist. Allowing ourselves to close the eyes, bringing the gaze behind us on a fixed point and softening the focus if we prefer to keep them open. And sometimes we might find in a twist where we're drawing ourselves around with the arm that we hold a lot of tension in the upper back on that same side. So on this occasion, we might notice some tension in the right lat at the upper back, the wing of the back. So just try and consciously on your next exhale, consider if we can soften there, if we can allow ourselves a bit of a release of tension, taking a nice slow inhale, a nice relaxed exhale to allow that release. That could mean that we come slightly out of the stretch in the sense of a less deep option, but when we're more relaxed, we'll be able to target our deeper connective tissue that bit more as opposed to forcing our way around with muscle tension. And getting ready in just a moment to come out of the pose. We'll take a nice inhale, and then on the exhale, come back around to face the front, bringing any props around with us, releasing that right hand from the left leg. Bring the legs out in front of us, having a bit of a shake, a bit of a bounce in the knees and then in the hips there. Getting a bit of movement back into the joints. Then slowly we'll make our way to a tabletop position, stacking the knees beneath the hips, the wrists beneath the shoulders, having a bit of a sway in the hips to get a bit of movement again in that back, in the hip joints. We could curl the toes underneath the ankles and the feet if we prefer to, or have the toes pointing back behind us. And then from there we're going to come into melting heart pose. This involves bringing the hands out in front of us, retaining that stacking of the knees and hips, drawing the chest towards the floor. If this is too intense on the neck, having the head hang in the air, or if it can't touch the floor, we could elevate it on a brick or a block beneath the forehead. And if we find that the wrists and the shoulders are too intense in the stretch here, having them positioned out in front of us, outstretched, we can come onto our elbows. Either way, we'll try and bring that chest down towards the floor to our degree, at our edge of the pose, that 80% mark of our maximum, not forcing things in any way, shape or form. And this pose is a little bit more yang than yin in some ways. And what I mean by that is it's a little bit more active and strengthening. We're having a static hold here where we're having to support the upper body with the arms and shoulders. So if that does get a bit too intense at any point, we can potentially drop the elbows down. And if it's still a bit too intense for us, then we can come out entirely, even to a child's pose or just laying onto the front in a resting belly pose. But don't feel we have to force this hold in our melting heart. And to come out the pose, we'll bring those hands, claw into the fingers so that we can position the wrist back beneath the shoulders and then lowering down onto our chest, stacking the hands in the center of the mat so the forehead can rest on the top hand, on the fleshy part between thumb and first finger, and then just walking the elbows slightly further forward. And this will just mean that we get a little bit deeper, softening the yang elements of this resting belly pose in the shoulders, loosening some tension there. And where we're lightly compressing the body against the floor and the mat here, where we're lying on our fronts, it might be more noticeable how the expansion of the torso is not just in the front of the body, it's out to the sides, it's behind us in a 360-degree motion. So trying to be noticeable with our inhale and exhale, how that's different to when we're sitting up tall or even when we're lying on our backs here. And gradually we're going to make our way back up from our resting belly pose. We can lift the head off with the hands, allowing the hands to come to the sides of the chest and slowly pushing up into a tabletop position again, stacking the knees, hips, wrists and shoulders, having a bit of a sway again in the hips, side to side might feel good. And from there we'll bring a bit of a gap with the knees a bit wider than the hips, allowing the hips to drop back between the feet into a variation of a child's pose, allowing the arms to come behind us, chest coming down towards the floor. Then just like in our melting heart pose, if we wanted to support with the neck and for the head, we could rest the forehead onto a brick, a block, a book, a blanket, a pillow, whatever we have to hand, and just allow a softer neck position if we're that little bit higher up. But we want to use this as a resting pose. So allowing that gap between the legs is really crucial so that we can take nice, slow and steady belly breaths without compression from the legs. Same applies for making sure the neck can be nicely rested so we're not hanging in the air. Maybe using this as an opportunity to relax the hands, the fingers, the features of the face in our child's pose whilst we rest here. And to come out of our child's pose, we can bring the hands back beneath the shoulders so we can push our torso up, removing any props out to the sides, going back into a tabletop position. From there we can come into a light cat-cow, dropping from the belly to the chest, so that we're coming on the inhale down towards the floor, then rounding through the spine on the exhale in our own time. Trying to roll from the tailbone up to the crown of the head, so the chin comes towards the chest on our exhale, dropping down between the shoulder blades, looking forwards on our inhale, taking our time at our own pace, not rushing the process. We then swing their legs out towards the side, and we'll want to have a block and our strap to hand. So if we're not using a strap, we could use any sort of fabric, anything that we can loop over the feet for one of our poses. Then we're going to make our way to the floor, lying on our backs, possibly elevating the head if we have any discomfort when lying down on the floor flat on our mat. You can place a block or a pillow beneath the head if needed. But then get our strap or strap-like object, placing it about shoulder width apart so that the hands are holding that loop over the chest, bringing the knees towards the chest and then bringing the strap over the ball of the feet, extending the legs up towards the sky, holding onto the strap nice and securely. If we're holding on to the strap, making sure that we've not got bent arms, the more bent the arms are, the more muscle engagement there'll be in the arms. And sometimes we'll find that the muscles give out before the stretch starts to fully engage. So trying to hold the strap nice and high towards the feet will just allow a straighter arm to take the weight of our legs as opposed to just the biceps at the upper arm. One option we could also go for here is to place the strap on the back of the skull, not the back of the neck, and then let the hands be free, resting out to the sides or stacked on the belly and the chest. If we have got a yoga strap or something that we can adjust the length of, we could also tighten it here to find the right intensity for us. Once we've found that intensity after a few goes, taking our time, then we can try and find our stillness. A final option again is we could maybe have a slightly shorter strap again, bring in that strap on the elbow crease this time. The hands can come together, resting the thumbs either at the further of the forehead or even behind the head to draw us deeper into this pose. So take your time to find the right option for you. And then once you've found that right intensity, we can commit to stillness, enjoying this nice posterior chain opening stretch. To come out of the pose, we can just release some tension by bending at the knees, releasing the strap from the hands or from the elbow crease, or carefully releasing the head back down, having unhooked the strap from the back of the skull. Bringing the knees towards the chest, we might feel nice, just hugging them in, moving side to side, and extending the legs out straight for our Shavasana, having the feet about as wide as the mat. Feet can fall out to the sides. Bring the chin towards the chest, maybe elevating onto a brick or a block if we want. The arms can come out to the sides, splayed nice and open through the chest, or they could be stacked on the belly, one hand belly, one hand chest for that breath connection. And then we don't need to rush this final period of our practice. Let's take our time to enjoy some stillness, some silence, without forcing things to change. Slowly softening the breath, taking nice gentle inhales and exhales through the nose from belly to chest and back down again, rolling up and down the body. If we wanted to now, we could continue our Shavasana, enjoying some minutes of peace and quiet. But if you'd like to close off the practice today, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to get onto the mat and use my class as an option to relax with. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. All the best.